And now it's better to develop this bishop to b7, but here Niemann decides to push b4, allowing white to go for knight to d5. And here one thing is clear, that black cannot go for c6 because of knight takes e7 check, queen takes e7, bishop to g5, attacking this queen, and if black pushed f6, simply bishop to f4. And now look at this position carefully. Black has this double pawn structure and this undeveloped bishop on c8, whereas white has this solid center as well as strong bishop on f4, and by all of this you can see that this position is better for white. So that's why in the actual game, after knight to d5, here Hans goes for and as I said previously, bishop to f4 is recommended for white, which will be a good outpost for this bishop, because obviously he can't capture on f1 due to the threat of knight to g5, which will pin this bishop. But here white goes for the move d5, and yes, he blocked the route of this bishop, which looks good at the first glance, but the problem with that move is now black can continue with this amazing move f5, targeting this pawn. But what about just e5? And in the next move, white will go for bishop to g5, which will target this queen. And guys, that's concerning for black. So to stop this, to stop the move bishop to g5, most of us will consider either h6 or maybe f6. And guys, the move f6 will stop the move bishop to g5, but it can't stop the move bishop to f4. And as you can see, this f4 position is also a good outpost for this dark square bishop, which will target which is targeting the important key squares of black. And we have to stop both. So that's why in this position, the best move for black is to push f4. And here, white can consider the move going to b3, threatening to push d6. And most of us will obviously slide our king, which looks logical, just getting away from the threat. But guys, there is something which black can do, which is even better. I mean, here black can go for this amazing move c4, giving up this pawn, because let's suppose if takes queen to c5, asking for queen exchange, takes knight takes c5, and as you can see, this d5 pawn is now undefended. So to defend this, white will definitely go for rook to d1, but knight to b3, attacking this rook. And after rook to b1, rook at a goes to d8. And guys, here black can also directly go for rook at a goes to d8. He doesn't need to go for this, but as you can see, this knight on b3 is also doing great. And by all of this, you can see one thing is clear, that this pawn can't be protected. And yeah, black is better. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move d5, here Hans goes for and after that, here white goes for queen to d2, a good move preparing for bishop to f4. Okay, so now queen to c2, preparing for knight to d2 so that he can go for knight c4, which will be a good outpost for this knight, which will target this queen. So to stop this, here Hans brings his bishop to a6. And since white is a rook up, so he can consider the move rook to a1, asking for rook exchange. And if rook to a3, he tries to attack this knight. Simply rook takes a3, b takes a3, but now comes f4, strengthening the pawn chain as well as opening the f2 square for so that white can bring this bishop to f2, which will target this pawn on c5 supported by this knight. But after rook takes a4, here white goes for. And now comes the most interesting part of this game. In this position, here white decides to sacrifice his knight by knight takes c5. But why? This is because after knight takes c5, now comes bishop takes c5. And obviously, black cannot capture this bishop by rook takes c5 because of d7. And you can see now no one can stop this promotion because the d5 and c8 square are already covered by these pawns. So to stop this, the only move is rook to d3, but simply rook to d1. Rook takes d7, rook takes d7. And yup, that's all. So that's why after bishop takes c5, after seeing all of this, here Niemann decides to capture on c4. And as you can see, since white is now close to promotion, so that's why bishop to d7. And after that, here white goes for rook to b1, preparing rook to b7 and king to f8. And here it's better to go for rook to b7, but instead here white decides to place his bishop to c7. And that's a mistake because this move doesn't make any sense. I mean, yes, here white can go for rook to b7, which is unnecessary because black will simply exchange and yep, that's all. And for white, it's better to go for rook to a7 so that he can prepare a discover check, but instead he goes for h3. And after that, Niemann brings his bishop to d5, a very powerful move preparing for rook to a8 so that he can exchange the rooks, and after this happens, all of these connected pawns can be easily tackled by this light square bishop as well as this king. And guys, instead of king e6, here rook to a6 might be the better option for black so that he can keep an eye over these pawns. And obviously, black cannot capture either of these pawns due to the threat of d7 and d8 supported by this bishop. So that's why he goes for. And guys, the move king to e3 is an inaccuracy because black can now go for g5, which stops this king from moving further. But instead, here black missed that move and he goes for rook to h8. And that's a mistake because now to win this game, white has to just find this amazing god level move, bishop to e1. But why? But why? Let's suppose if rook takes h3, king to d4, attacking this bishop, bishop to b7, rook to a7, rook to b3, king to c4, targeting this rook, rook to b1, simply bishop to b4, cutting the connection between them, and king to c6, d7. And since white is now close to promotion, so black is forced to capture on d7 and then simply rook takes b7. But guys, after rook to h8, here white goes for king to d4, which targets this bishop. And here it's better to exchange the rooks, but he goes for f6. And now the move e6 is winning for white because after takes, rook to c1, taking control over the c file as well as preparing for bishop to b4 checkmate. And yes guys, that will be a checkmate because these squares are already covered by this king, and this d4 square is covered by this e6 pawn, and this c file is already covered by this rook. So to stop this, the only move is bishop to c6, but simply bishop to g3 check, king to e7, rook takes c6, and yup, that's all. But in the actual game, after the move f6, here white missed that and he goes for bishop to g3, missing this amazing opportunity. And now it's better to go for bishop to d6 so that he can go for rook to c7 check, and then he can capture this g7 pawn. But instead, he made a mistake by bishop to d4, allowing white to go for rook to e4. And it's better to just guard this bishop, but here white goes for rook takes c8. And yeah, that he sacrificed his rook, because after bishop takes g7, you can see at the end white now has two pawns, a bishop and a king. And let's see how white managed to win this drawn game. And everything was fine till here, but he blundered by rook to g1, and that's losing because of f6, rook to f1, bishop to e3, stopping rook to g1 check, rook to f3, h7 check, king to h8, f7, threatening bishop to d4 check. So that's why Niemann decides to give a check, but simply bishop to g5. So that's why in this position Hans Niemann resigned. Okay guys, so let me go back to the move rook to g1. Yup, here the only move which can save this game is not rook to g1. It is the move rook to g3. And now this position is equal. But why? Let's see. Suppose if white goes for the same continuation like f6, rook to f3. Basically, this rook on this third rank stops this bishop from going to e3 square. Okay, so h7 check, king to h8, f7. And guys, in this position, black can actually sacrifice his rook by rook takes f7. And now white can, now you can see there is not any threat of bishop to f6 check due to this rook. So that's why king takes f7, king takes h7, and you can see this is draw due to insufficient material. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.